to give an opportunity to go over the livestock skill-a-thon or the food cook-off, the sessions, rules and guidelines, and then break them down so that we can give you guys tips or information of how to give kids information to study when they actually get to the contest so that they're prepared. So is this, have you worked with kids or livestock skill-a-thon, or is this something that's new, just so I can kind of get a feel for?
Well, this will kind of be new for us. I mean, I do a livestock skill-a-thon for our county, but I just kind of wanted to see where everything is for, you know, the state for down at Showcase Showdown.
Sure, perfect. Have you been to the state one at all? Like, have you seen it in operation? Like, have you seen it happen?
No, I haven't.
Okay, alrighty, that sounds good. Just so I can kind of know exactly what to go over. So the state contest is broke down into stations. So when the kids arrive, is that livestock skill-a-thon is different than maybe livestock judging or meat judging or things like that, because it's a team-based thing that we encourage team members to work together to be able to complete the process. So we expect them to come in and have conversations and interact and work on it together to provide their answers. So when they come, the contest is set up so that there's individual stations for each of the parts of the contest. So there's a station on cattle, and there's a station on goats and sheep and pigs, and then there's one on feed, there's one on quality assurance, and then there's one on equipment ID, and then there's one on livestock evaluation. So then that's for the juniors, and then on the seniors, they have a different line. They have those same stations. They just have added ones where they have wool judging, they have feeds and feeding, they have reproduction can be added to the individual species. So when they come in, they will work as a team and they get to choose where they want to start. So it's kind of it's not you go do this station, you go do this station. It's kind of come in and work through the contest as they want. So they have 2 hours to complete the whole entire contest. And I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see that outline. Can you see on your phone? Do you have video?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and then you can see that. So those exact stations. So the stations that are there on the screen now for the juniors is the cattle, sheep, swine, goats, quality assurance, feed ID, evaluation, equipment ID, and then group process. And we're going to talk about group process in a minute. And then for the seniors, they have those same stations, but they have added meat science, wool, and technology. So when you're bringing the kids and helping them to get prepared for this, is that back to those on the individual cattle stations, is that they're provided pictures. Everything for the junior and the intermediate contest comes from a livestock skill-a-thon CD that was made by Kentucky. So your extension office, every extension office was provided the livestock skill-a-thon CD. And so your office should have that available that you could check out. So have you ever seen that CD?
Not that I am aware of, but I haven't really looked hard for it either.
You're good. Okay, you're good. The reason why that's kind of an important thing, and I think it's important for you to just know that that's there, is because the livestock skill-a-thon for the juniors is only based off of that CD. So all the breeds that they have to know comes from that CD. I was just going to see if I could get a picture of it, but I can't find a picture, but it comes from that CD. So when under cattle, sheep, swine, goats, when they talk about breed identification, is if the kids will get that CD and study from that CD, those are the exact pictures that they will be provided at the contest. So it's a great teaching tool. The same thing with wholesale parts, is all the wholesale parts from that CD, that's what they'll get for wholesale parts, except for goats. And the goats wholesale part is listed on the state 4-H website. And then the same with the external parasites, is it's off of that CD. So literally, if they take that CD and study it, they will be able to almost like teach themselves on what it would look like when they get there. So when they get there on those species is they're going to be given a picture of a cow, and there'll be 5 or 10 parts labeled, and then they just have to identify the external parts, or they'll be given 5 whole cells and they have to identify the whole cells. And then on the breeds, they're going to be given a picture and a description, and then they have to identify the breed. For the junior contest is that they will be given a word bank, so that, what I mean by that, and I can show this to you, let me switch. Let me show you, is that they're going to be giving a word bank. I'm going to pull it up right now so you can see it. So the picture will be laid out there of the cattle, and here's what it looks like, is that they're going to have a word bank because this has all the list of breeds that they could possibly have for the cattle. So those are the only ones that would be on that junior line, and the same with wholesale parts and the same with external parts, is those are the only ones that would be on their contest. So that Kentucky CD is super helpful because that's where they're going to get that information from. In terms of quality assurance, is that all the quality assurance questions are taken from the Wyoming 4-H quality assurance curriculum. So every county office also has that curriculum, and so everything that they would have to know for quality assurance comes from that curriculum piece. The feeds identification and the equipment identification are off of that Kentucky CD. So on that CD, the feeds might be, the real feed might show up in a bottle, but if they study the feeds that are on that and identify the ones that are on that CD, that's the only one that they would give. So they're not going to give something crazy that's not on there for the junior. The evaluation part of the contest is literally where they're going to be given a class most of the time, and they have to place a class. So it's 4 pictures of an animal and they have to place it. Or they might be given some EPDs, and then they have to place the class for EPDs. Or they might be given 2 pictures of pigs, and then they ask 5 questions that they have to answer about the pictures. So it's just based off the evaluations for like the livestock judging component part of the contest. So that's really it in a nutshell for the junior part of the livestock skill-a-thon. If they study that CD, they will have all the knowledge or information that they need to do really well in this contest. Now for the seniors, I'm going to come back to the groupthink thing. For the seniors, it becomes more challenging because the seniors can be anything. So we've used Oklahoma has an amazing website that has breeds of livestock on there. And so the breeds for the senior contest can come from basically anything. So it can come from the Livestock Skill-a-thon CD, or it could come from that Oklahoma website, or it could come from Wikipedia. It could be anywhere, or it could be pictures that were taken out in the field. So the seniors have to know more and more breeds because there's not a word bank. So I'm going to share what their score sheet looks like so you can see their score sheet. Their score sheet is different because it's going to look like this junior one. Let me just pull it up really quick. The difference is they're not given the word bank, so they have to be able to identify it from their knowledge. So this is the cattle score sheet right here, so that they have to identify 5 breeds, 5 wholesale and 5 external. So there's not a word bank, which makes it much, much harder. And then the other thing that they're added on their individual species for the senior kids is the reproduction and health. And under reproduction and health, if they study things like body temperatures, ovulation, gestation, all those information related to reproduction, then that's the type of questions that they're going to get on there. But I can't stress enough to those kids not to study body temperatures, gestations, ovulation timeframe, any of those that have to do with those individual components of the reproduction. So that's important. They might be given a piece of equipment that that they have to identify what it is. So like, for example, there was a cedar or an AI pipette on there, and they had to identify what that is for the reproductive component. So, but if they study really those general things, they'll be good to go. For the other components of the senior contest, let me go back to that, is that the meat science, they have to identify meat cuts, or they have to place a class. The positive part is in this explanation of the contest is there's a list of meat cuts, and only the meat cuts from this list will be included. So anything that's on this list is fair game. So it isn't as much as like the meat judging contest, which is beautiful because that could be many, many cuts. But if they learn the cuts that are on this meet identification lists, then they would be good to go for that. Or they might be given a class of 4 pork chops and they have to place it. So that is like it's to represent the meat judging part of the contest, but it's not as in-depth. So this list that I'm sharing right now on the screen is provided on the State 4-H website under the contest outline. So that's where you'll find that list that they would have to know. Then the other part of the seniors is the wool judging, and that is usually where they're given 4 fleeces that they have to place, or they're given wool samples that they would have to identify which one has the most vegetable matter, or which one is the finest, or which one is has lanolin in it, like questions regarding wool samples. Quality assurance, once again, that's from the Wyoming curriculum, so if they know their quality assurance from the Wyoming quality assurance curriculum. Feeds and feeding, that is usually feed identification. It could be that they have to figure a ration, but most of the time it's feed identification. But you would need to teach them both as far as how they would balance a ration using a Pearson square, as well as identifying feeds. Most of the feeds that they would have to identify are on the Livestock Skill-a-thon CD, or there's others added in there that are not, like beans. That's my clue, is there's lots of beans in the feed samples that they would maybe have to know. So that's the feeds and feeding. Evaluation is the same as we talked about in the juniors. They would have to place a class or do EPDs. Equipment ID is fair game. I would suggest when they're learning an equipment ID is learn the ones that are on the Livestock Skill-a-thon CD, but then maybe go to a feed store and look at equipment pieces are there, or go on Jeffers or Valley Vet, those online places where you can buy equipment, and study the pictures on there, because a lot of the identification stuff has been taken from those places. And then the other part that's on the senior is a technology piece. And this technology piece comes directly, there's a red book, which is the book that cattle producers use to log information about their cattle herds in. And on the State 4-H website, let me show you where that is. On the State 4-H website, this is what it looks like when you go to the Livestock Skill-a-thon page. And right down here, if you can see my cursor moving, is that there's a technology study material on here. And the kids just need to know how to use that red book. And this is the exact thing that's used for that technology piece, is we use this exact Excel sheet. And then they're given questions, and it might be which calf had the lightest birth weight, or if you were going to retain calf number 1 and calf number 3 because you needed to improve your birth weights, which one would you retain into your herd? So the questions that are derived for that contest come directly from the technology study material that is right here. So it's really important. I think that the technology and the group think process has been the challenging parts of the contest that possibly people maybe weren't quite ready for. So I would highly encourage you, if you have senior kids, to study this technology Excel sheet that's provided on the State 4-H website, and then they'll be prepared for that component of the contest. And then, do you have questions about that before I go over the group think question? Do you have questions about any of those?
No, I think I'm doing good. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, there's some other people that have joined us, so welcome if you've just got on. At any point, if you guys have questions, we're just going over the Livestock Skill-a-thon. So if you have questions about it, please jump in and I'd be happy to answer them. With the group think process, that is probably the component that I feel like maybe kids have showed up at the state contest that maybe weren't prepared or didn't know what to do in that. And so that was really one of the goals tonight, is to try to give you guys some tips that you could utilize to prepare your kids for the group think process. So for the group think process is that in the very beginning, like before now, is that on this informational sheet, we have this list of 5 study areas. And the group think question will come from those topics. And so I was just going to mute a few people. So the livestock skill-a-thon study questions, like this is published and this is put out there long before now, where kids could start learning about these topic areas. The actual topic areas have been released to your county extension offices. As far as what will be the topic area for the junior and what will be the topic area for the senior contest. So those have already been released to the extension office, and hopefully the extension agents have shared that information with you guys. Then what happens is that on a week before the contest. This year it's going to be about the 16th of June. We will actually release the exact question. So there's a question that will be provided for the kids. And the idea is that ideally they've been learning about the topic area and they learned all they can. So then when they get the topic, the specific question is that they don't have to crash course it as much to learn about that specific topic area. But if they haven't, then that's great. They'll be provided that to find information. But the idea is that they will be given this question so they can go do research on it ahead of time and come prepared to give a presentation on it, basically is what it happens. And I'm going to share the score sheet for that so that we can talk about that. So what happens is the kids as a group will go into a small room with some judges, and then they're going to be given an opportunity to give a presentation on this group, on the topic that was provided for them. And it will be the same topic that was released on June 16th, the exact same question. So the idea of how, my opinion of how kids can be successful in this component of the contest is, one, be prepared with some information ahead of time, that they have done their research, that they studied, they figured out what they're actually going to almost say. So if you can think of the group process as maybe a skit type, if you could put an analogy in there. So the kids are going to practice this, you hope, ahead of time. So the kids, this is what they're getting scored on, is that they're getting scored on participation, which means that did everybody in their team, and that no matter if they have a 3-man team or they have a 5-man team, did everybody participate in the group process? So when they get the topic, ideally they would sit down or stand up, either way, however they feel comfortable, and they would sit and discuss it. So they would have a conversation among their team members, and it's kind of like the judges are observing. So they would have a conversation amongst themselves and discuss the question that was provided for them and what would be some alternatives or selections. I think what has happened is maybe kids have studied for this in advance and then they just show up and they're ready to give like a speech, and that's not the concept of what should be occurring in the group think process. The idea is that they would show up, that they would have a discussion among their team to come up with some scenarios of what their options would be and what they have. And ideally is hopefully they've discussed this ahead of time so they know what that is. But so their points, 20 points come for the junior teams, 20 points come from, did all the team members participate? Were all of them given time and they talked about the process? Did they read through the scenario? Oftentimes I've heard judges come in that the kids pick up the little sheet of paper, and when they walk in the room, the sheet of papers are printed off, so they don't have to take that in there with them. Well, they can't. They can't take anything with them, but the sheet of paper is there. So did they read through it as a group? Did they discuss it? Whoever's going to read it, could they speak and pronunciate the words so that they had practiced that ahead of time? Did they have a conversation, and then did they come up with a group census of what their answer to the question is going to be? So from the judge's perspective, is they're looking at a couple different things. Did everybody participate in a discussion? Did they read it out loud so that everybody knows what they're talking or what they're going to talk about? And 3, did they come to a consensus? So, and then from there is that they're also given points on the bottom part of this score sheet. 20 more points on the bottom part there is that were they given a variety of options. So when they discussed this, so was there a variety of alternatives that they could do, or was there a variety of topics that they could talk about within their discussion? And then did they come to a conclusion, and they actually presented a conclusion, and then they actually are given points for the presentation they give to the judges. So if you could picture that, they would come into the room, they could introduce themselves at that time if they want, or they can do it at the end. It doesn't really matter, but then they would read this scenario. They'd sit and have a group discussion about the scenario. And then they would stand up in essence or sit down, it's their option, but then they would give a presentation to the judges and answering the groupthink question. So an example would be is that they could be given some EPDs on a set of bowls, and they have to make a decision of whether they should purchase one of those bowls or they should just use the bowl that they have at home already. So they would have a groupthink discussion as maybe talk about what each of the EPDs mean, and then why each of those would be important. Maybe talk about the bowl that they have at home that they could use. They could talk about the cost. How much would it cost to buy the semen? How much would it cost to have somebody, if they had to hire them, to come in and give it, or could they just AI themselves? Are they able to improve the genetics of their herd? whatever their discussion points would be, is they'd have a conversation, and then at the end, they would decide, yes, we're going to purchase one of these bowls, and which one is it going to be? Or we're not going to AI this year, we're just going to use the bowl we have at home because financially that makes more sense. Or the bowl that we have at home is already making the herd improvements we need. So they hopefully have learned before they come to do that groupthink process, they have studied, so they would know what the EPDs mean, so that when they come in, they could have a discussion about each of the EPDs at the top in this scenario or this example. And then they'd have a discussion about it. And so once again, it's really important though that they would give a conclusion and an answer to the question back to the judges. So how they choose to do that as a team, there's no set guidelines. They can do that however they want, but basically the groupthink process should include a discussion amongst their team members. Everybody should participate in the discussion, and then they should give some type of presentation or conclusion or something to the judges in terms of what they did. In the room when they come, as I said, that the groupthink question will be on a piece of paper there. They will also be provided a whiteboard and some markers and on an easel. And they can choose to use the whiteboard or they choose not to. It doesn't matter. There's no points given or taken if they chose to use the whiteboard, but they need to know that they could do that. So if they were going to do that, if you have a kid that's going to write on the whiteboard, you probably need to have a discussion in advance to identify a kid that has like clear legible handwriting so that people can read it. Because regardless, it's still a presentation to judges. So if you have a kid that maybe doesn't have the neatest handwriting, it could do one of two things. Is one, the judges are reading along and they can't read it, or two, that if they're writing notes down for their team to use in their presentation, then maybe their team members are having a hard time reading that. So I think that some of the comments the judges said is though that easel and whiteboard is meant to be an aid. So what they would hope is that if the kids are going to use it, they could use it to take some notes on it, and they could use it in their presentation, but not that they would sit and just read it directly off of the board. So that's kind of some key points in there. The other things that we've had as comments from the judges is that kids have maybe made notes on a piece of paper, and they take those notes in there and they use their piece of paper in this process. And that's probably when maybe that some teams have lost some points. And so they really need to go prepared with the information and knowledge in their head of what they want to have a discussion about, what their answer to the question is going to be ahead of time, and not take notes. So if you put that in an analogy, that would be like oral reasons in a livestock judging contest. Kids that come in and can just give their oral reasons are going to get more points than if kids come in and use a piece of paper to give oral reasons. So that's kind of an analogy of the same kind of concept for the groupthink process. So in this groupthink process is that the juniors, let me go back to that sheet. Hold on, let me go back to this piece right here. On the juniors, the groupthink process is worth 40 points. And then on the seniors, the groupthink process is worth 60, as they would hope that the senior age kids would have more details, more information, more to present in that. A couple things to remember is about the groupthink process is that they have 10 minutes to complete this whole process. So they do get points taken off if they go over 10 minutes. There's no points taken off if they only go in and use 2 minutes or 4 minutes or anything like that. But the maximum is 10 points, and there's a penalty for the judge's decision as far as how many points they would take off for going over the time limit. So kids do need to know and be aware of that there is a maximum time limit on their groupthink process. So I think that's kind of it on the groupthink process. Does anybody have questions about that? There's a group of us on here now. Okay, let me look. I haven't looked in the chat box. If you have a question and you can't unmute yourself, you sure can put it in that chat box. And if you just joined us, the chat box is the little bubble. It's like a call out button at the bottom there that you can write in a question, and I can monitor that as well if you want to put your question in there. With that being said, is that the other thing I just wanted to kind of go over that people don't understand is that for senior age kids, there is a national trip associated to this contest and funding that helps support that. So the champion team that wins the Livestock Skill-a-thon contest at Showcase Showdown is given a financial stipend to attend a national contest, and they get to choose which contest that is. So there's a national contest. The actual National 4-H Livestock Skill-a-thon contest is in Kentucky, in conjunction with the North American International Livestock Expo. So that's usually in November, and that's in Louisville, Kentucky. And their contest is very similar to our contest. Maybe there is some difference in the concept that part of their contest they have to do individually, and part of their contest they do as a team. So the kids maybe have to know more information than individually and not just a team when they go there. The other thing is that their quality assurance thing is done hands-on. So we have had kids attend that contest, and so they were actually given a group of sheep in a pen, and they actually had to vaccinate those sheep, and so they're scored on their handling skills. How did they get the vaccine? Did they properly dose the amount of medicine that they should give? You know, things like that. So it's scored a little bit different as far as their quality assurance rotation, because it's an actual hands-on thing that they have to do. But other than that, it's very similar as far as the components that they have: a breed component, an equipment ID, a feeds one, which is usually hay judging, a wool one, a meat science one. Our components are based off of that content to a point. It's a little bit different, but not. The other contest that they can choose to attend is the Western Junior Livestock Show in October. Has a livestock skill-a-thon, and that's in Rapid City, South Dakota. That contest is not tailored after our contest because it's just put on by that Western Junior Committee. But we've had kids participate in that before, and it's similar as far as identification and things like that. And then the third contest that they could choose is there's a contest in conjunction with Arizona National Livestock Show in Phoenix, Arizona in December. And that contest is maybe even, I think, harder than the Louisville one, but that contest is a fun one, but it does have different components because the kids actually have to take a test at that one that is like a multiple choice fill in the blank true false type question test, and that test is super hard. But so it does have a test component, and then it has these other components. It also has an individual and a team component, so the whole contest is not done by a team. So we've had teams that have won that didn't realize that they could advance onto a national contest. So that is something knowing when you go into this contest, if you have seniors, to know that that is an opportunity for them to attend one of those that they get to choose to attend. If they choose the Louisville contest, they can only participate in that contest one time. If they choose the South Dakota and the Arizona one, that's not limited, so they could go to those contests numerous times. That's not a one shot for them. The Arizona one, if they've participated in the National Louisville contest, they cannot participate in Arizona though, so that's always something to keep in mind if your team is going on a national trip. The other thing that I think is important that people know in advance when they're creating teams for the state contest is that the Louisville and the Arizona are teams of 4. So our livestock skill-a-thon allows a team of 5, and there's a reason behind that. But so sometimes it's been a challenge when counties put together a senior team and it has 5 kids on it, and they win and they want to advance and go to a national contest, and then they find out later that they can only put 4 people on their team when they go to Louisville or when they go to Arizona Nationals. I am not sure about the South Dakota one, if it's a 4-man team. I don't know that for sure. I would check that before you chose that contest. But even before you identify a team to go to our state contest, that's something that I think people should know, because what happens is, and that has happened to me individually personally, is that we had a 5-man team, and then we had to tell one kid that they wouldn't be able to judge at the national contest, and that's not a fun experience as a educator, coach, volunteer, whatever. So that's really important to know that even though our contest allows 5, the national contest only allows 4. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover in terms of livestock skill-a-thon, was the contest itself, the groupthink process, and then kind of national eligibility. Does anybody have questions? And any of you guys that just joined us, we're just going to wrap this up and move on to our next area. Does anybody else have questions about livestock skill-a-thon? Nobody? Okay. So with that, let me just check my phone really quick, because I was making sure that somebody got on that was trying to get on. It doesn't look like I have a text, so we're good. We're going to rotate and move on to, if nobody has questions about livestock skill-a-thon, let me just say, if you do, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to help prepare, you as a coach or a volunteer, to help you give resources that you can help prepare your kids for. If you have a hard time finding that livestock skill-a-thon CD in your office or the Wyoming 4-H quality assurance curriculum, just holler and I can help get those connected to you. That's something that you can purchase and have in your office. or have to teach with the kids as well. There, even those CDs, your kids could purchase them individually if they wanted to have their own at home to study with. So that's kind of choices that you guys would make. They just have to be ordered from Kentucky to get those. Each of the county offices will only provide 1 or 2 at the beginning, and then from there the offices purchase their own, but kids sure could order those to have as a study resource. So with that, we're going to move on to the food cook-off contest, and on with us is Gretchen, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let me see if I can stop sharing my screen. Oh, I think I did. Can you guys see my screen? Gretchen, can you see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay, so I got to stop sharing. Oh, there, I got it. Okay, there, so I could stop sharing. So we're going to move on to livestock, or to the food cook-off, and Gretchen is the 4-H educator that's over top of the food cook-off, and so she's joined us to share some information about that, as it's definitely changed this year, and we want people to be prepared for the changes. And then also we've invited Wendy Nilsson to join us. And Wendy's actually a Central Nutrition Educator in Sweetwater County. I think she has supervisory role over more than Sweetwater County. I could get that wrong. Wendy can share that with you. But I asked Wendy to join us as well, because I think it's important that maybe we provide some tips and things that are critically important when we go to handling food in terms of food safety and temperature and things like that, so that when those kids are prepared and serving something to their judges, that the judges feel like it's something safe that they could eat. So I've asked Wendy to join us and be part of this presentation as well. And so we'll let her share in a minute, but let's just make sure Gretchen's on. Gretchen, are you there? I don't know. She shows up, but I don't know if she can hear. Let me.
Hello?
Oh, she is there. Okay, perfect.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay.
So I will turn that over to Gretchen. Before we move on, though, onto food cook-off, is that there was only one person when we started, so I didn't announce this. If you guys would put in the chat box, like how many people are in attendance as far as male, female at your site and what county you're from. I just see Carol Whitney added that in there. Carol, thanks for doing that and putting in as far as that you're from the county and with you. Just if you'll put in the chat box where you're from, it's just our way to keep an attendance tonight as far as who's here. So if you could do that, that would be super helpful for us to keep an attendance with that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen. Gretchen, if you, I know it looks like you're on your phone. If you want me to share stuff from the State 4-H website, I'd be happy to do that. Just let me know as far as what you want on there.
So first of all, I guess, do you have any questions specifically? We can address those first, or?
If you want to talk, I've got you guys muted, so you're going to have to unmute yourself. If you haven't used Zoom, that's on the bottom corner, usually the little microphone.
I'm Kamisha Larson. I'm from Thermopolis, Hot Springs County, and I was in 4-H and stuff, and it's been a while, but I'm brand new to like doing cooking for kids, so I'm just trying to figure everything out.
So are you guys planning on going to Showcase Showdown?
I'm not sure. Like, we're just kind of getting stuff going right now.
Have
So
you
I
communicated with Joey?
No.
So I would encourage you to visit with Joey, like, so that you guys can get signed up.
Okay.
So that he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions specific to the food cook-off?
No, I'm just seeing what everything is all about.
So I will kind of go through it if there isn't any specific questions right now. If that's what you want me to do, Donna, can.
Yeah,
that works for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So food cook-off drastically changed. I probably cannot express enough to make sure you read the rules and practice. We don't really want a big train wreck for kids when they get to the cook-off. The reason that the cook-off rules were changed this year is to mirror more of what goes on at the national contest. And that's something that I pushed for, so that seniors had more of a carrot to work towards to get to a national contest through the food cook-off. In the sense of the other contests that we compete in, they have an opportunity to go to nationals, and I truly believe you're only as good as your competition. So it's good to get out of your framework sometimes. So national contest was drastically different from our state contest last year when we went. It's always held in Texas, and I think it was Dallas that we went to. That was a long time ago, but it seems like anyway. And it was a great opportunity. So the kids in every county is different, and I can just tell you, and even taking my kids to national, they still did not have their kits ready. When we got there and went through them, they still were missing things. So we had to go, which isn't a big deal, but we had to go get things to fill their kits. So as a county, and I know Park County did this, we just purchased all of the stuff for the kits, and kids will be able to check them out, or they can use them when they come to practice, and then we'll take them to the state contest. I can tell you the kits are probably about $250 with what we purchased today, from the totes to all the supplies that are needed in them. So it's not a necessity, but it's something that I felt like it was easier for us to help kids be a little bit more prepared to go to the contest. So the junior and intermediates, the recipes are on the website. I encourage them to practice those recipes at home. All of the ingredients for those 3 recipes will be supplied at the state contest. They just need to bring their totes with the tools to cook those items. When they come to the state contest, they will draw out of a hat one of those recipes, and then they will cook it with their team. Some ways for them to get added points is to alter their recipe, to add ingredients. They will have an opportunity to go to the pantry. I can't remember how many times the juniors get to go, but they will have an opportunity to go to the pantry to get added items. And so they can kind of practice that at home and to alter their recipe. And then they will have an hour. The one tricky part is they won't be able to do dishes at the contest. So they will need to have a tote to clean up their area well and take those dirty dishes and wash them, whether it's at the motel room or wherever they're staying. They'll need to get those dishes washed on their own time. They will present their food to the judges. I believe that we'll have judges that will be wandering around for food, looking at food safety, their neatness during their cooking, their teamwork. And that's a big part of it, is they need to make sure everyone on their team has a job. There's some parts to it that they will have the information to figure out cost per serving, the nutrients that are included in that dish that they're making. They need to make those presentations. They'll make those presentations to the judge when they present their plate. So the seniors, are there any questions about the juniors and the intermediates? For the seniors, they are given 2 chicken breasts, and then they're given mystery ingredients in a brown paper bag per se. When we went to national, those items consisted of like a little baggie of flour with some spices in it. It consisted of a peach and maybe some garlic. So we're not really sure what will be in that bag. I won't know either, just because I have kids that are competing. But I will give Sarah just some ideas, just like with you, things that were in that. And then the kids will have an opportunity they need to kind of put their thoughts together, look on that pantry list, and they will go to the pantry and come up with their recipe in the 1 hour time. Again, that team, they need to make sure they include everyone that's cooking, do food safety, make sure they're wearing gloves, the whole cross-contamination with meat and vegetables. And they can talk about those things when they are doing their presentation to the judges about tips that they did for cross-contamination, how they've altered their recipe, things that they included. Make sure they're taking the temperature of the meat and that they know that chicken should be at 135 or 140 or 160, whatever it may be. They need to know what those food temperatures are for food safety. And again, so I like today when we were shopping, I realized that the juniors and intermediates don't cook with an electric skillet. I think that we probably should add that, that they could use an electric skillet. Just because some counties probably aren't going to buy 2 hot plates. I don't know. What do you think, Dawn?
Yeah, I don't know about changing it this year, but I think that's definitely for the future. I mean, I don't know, you'd have to ask Sarah about changing it, but I think
I think that's just something like down the future, we'll have to get some feedback, because it's fine that, they can practice on their hot plates and they should be fine for this year. But I know that the national contest didn't do hot plates for the juniors or didn't do electric skillets. But I really question that now today. I was like, oh, maybe they should. But I think we're good that they can just use the 2 hot plates and they'll be fine. So, do you have any questions? I really encourage people to cook on their hot plates, the seniors to cook with the electric skillet. Make sure they use the items that are in their kit. Make sure their can openers work. And we're not there to set up kids to fail. In the past, I've borrowed a can opener from another team when the can openers failed or if they forgot something. By no means we do not want tears and we don't want kids to fail. So, but try to really encourage them to practice at home.
I think that's a great point that Gretchen says, because honestly, that's happened to kids from our county, is that they practice at home and they have their whole kits and then something's left out. So I think you need to prepare your kids that if they're struggling to ask for help, Gretchen will be there. And we want it to be super positive. And this year it's super challenging, I think, because it's such a big change and it's going to be so fun and exciting to watch. So we want kids to walk away with a super positive experience. So just know that I think that they should be able to know when they get in there, if they need help, go find Gretchen and she can help them. Because that has literally, there's been things that out of their control that happened. And I know there's no water this year, but one time one of the team's sink plugged up. It was awful, right? So and Gretchen worked through it and fixed it, you know what I mean? And so I just want kids to know that she's there to help them. So that's
well, and that is right. It's like we truly want kids to come back and participate. This contest is growing. I can tell you, as much as some of those kids are probably nervous about it, so am I. It's like I cannot see everything that's going to happen and then try and prevent a train wreck. We're just hoping that we can handle it quickly, and if there's like a challenge that we can fix it quickly. We're doing a trial run at a regional contest tomorrow in Park County, and I'm sure we'll figure out some things tomorrow that, that's something that we can hopefully detour from the state contest. But we just don't want kids to panic there. Truly, we're there to help them and to get them through it, and that's what we're for.
So if you can see on your screen, is that I pulled up and shared that, what Gretchen was talking about. And if you guys are looking for those guidelines, those are on the State 4-H website, and this is what they look like, that I kind of scrolled through there as far as what the seniors have to do, the juniors, the list of ingredients that, there's some tips on there, and then the supply list of what they can bring with them is on there. And then the ingredients of what will be provided for them is on there. So this is kind of an important thing that the kids really get this off and know that this is on here. I also shared a minute ago, I just changed it again, is that these are the 3 recipes that the juniors will have. The teriyaki beef, the one pot cheesy taco pasta, or the chicken. And so they do need to come prepared to cook all those because they're going to draw out of a hat and they're not going to know which one they're going to get. So that's just kind of an FYI. But if they alter their recipe, Gretchen, just to confirm that they can alter their recipe, but they probably shouldn't alter it for something that's not on the supply list because they're not going to bring in extra supplies. So I think that's a point that people need to know is if you alter their recipe, they can alter it, which is going to get them more points, but they need to just only use the things that they can get in the pantry. So.
That is exactly right. So you can kind of look at the pantry list, and there's not every detail what will be on there, but there'll be vegetables that are added. And so if the recipe doesn't call for onion, but maybe you could add onion to it, or cilantro, or certain spices, practice at home with those, and just kind of have that in the back of your mind. Oh, that mixed well, or like lime juice maybe mixed well with one of those recipes, but kind of look on that pantry list to get your ideas to do some altering. And if you have a brand new young team that really is scared to death, it's okay that they don't alter. If they are like anal retentive just to get through there, it is fine. We're just excited that they're participating. So
I think it'll be scary for everybody their first time.
Oh,
so
it will.
Good thing. So,
but it's fun. Truly, it is a fun thing. And once they get in there, but parents are not allowed to talk to the kids during the contest in any kind of form, whether it's electronic form or verbal. The kids can talk to me and I'll like help them with whatever they need help with, but I can't talk to parents or coaches.
Perfect. Any other questions for Gretchen in terms of the actual contest?
As you guys practice at home, as probably in your own counties, June is kind of nutso and crazy, but you can truly call, and my secretary has my cell number, or my cell number I think is on that stuff. You can easily try and catch me, and I gladly will help you as much as I can. I'm by no means no expert, but I'm excited about the contest and want kids to be successful. So
perfect. Okay, so at this point I'm going to turn it over to Wendy Nelson, and she's just going to give us some cooking tips. And Camille, I think this might be, even things that they could use in their project meeting. So, I mean, we asked her to do this tonight because we have this food safety component part of this that we really want kids to come and be prepared to know what that internal temperature is and things like that. But by all means, if you're just doing cooking meetings, that I think this all applies as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy.
Well, thanks for having me. It sounds like so much fun, the cook-off. The kids probably think it's like Chop Junior or something. But food safety would be super important, especially in a competition setting. So that would be really, really important for the kids to have this down, because since the parents can't talk to them, they probably need to really know what they're doing, and they're dealing with chickens. So nobody wants to make anyone sick. Yeah, so that's important. So there's 4 basic ideas about food safety. The first one is clean. So we want to make sure that all our surfaces, our appliances, our hands especially, are clean and sanitized. So I noticed there was a question about Clorox wipes. Clorox wipes are great because they do kill bacteria, but the problem is that they leave a residue. So if you're thinking about wiping off your cutting board and sanitizing it with a Clorox wipe, it's actually going to leave a residue on there. You can make your own sanitizing spray by adding a teaspoon of plain old bleach to a gallon of water, mixing that together, and then you can put it in a spray bottle and spray your surfaces, your cutting board, anything that you're working with. You can just spray that with a fine mist. It'll evaporate and it won't leave any type of film on there or residue. So a teaspoon of bleach to 1 gallon of water makes that solution. So when we're talking about cleaning, we want to make sure our cutting boards are clean. We don't want any type of cross-contamination with our raw meat and our fresh fruits and veggies. Other things we want clean are our can openers. Sometimes we don't think about that, but we need to make sure that they're clean and all the gears are nice and clean because the bacteria can build up in there. We want to make sure that our dishcloths are clean. We want to switch those out every day, and especially if you're in a competition, you'd probably want to start out with fresh every time. We want to clean our fruits and vegetables, so that's something that we want to really think about. Which ones can we scrub with a brush, and which ones should we just wash gently? So the ones with a tougher skin, like a potato, carrot, any type of melon, we want to scrub them really good under running water. And that's going to make sure that we get as much of the pesticides and the bacteria and the dirt off of that as we can. With our softer fruits like mushrooms, strawberries, we just want to rinse those off and dry those with a paper towel. Make sure that, especially watermelon, you don't want to use any soap on our fruits. That can leave a residue also, but with the clean running water, and then gently wash those off. But with the melon, you want to use a brush, and potatoes if you can. Another way that we can keep things clean and separated is using the bags that are at the meat counter and with our fruits and vegetables, making sure that we put those in those plastic bags, using those wipes that they have available in the grocery store to wipe everything off. That's really important. And then making sure you've got your gloves, and hair nets are really important too, especially if you have long hair. You want to make sure it's tied back, but a hairnet will really be helpful too. That will make sure that there's no stray hair in your recipes. So, but by all means, washing your hands is the most important thing as far as cleaning goes. We want to make sure they're super clean. Wash them for 20 seconds. Wash underneath the nails. Wash the tops of our hands, and then dry with a paper towel if you can. That works really well. If we're using the same towel over and over again, then everyone's germs can be transferred onto that. So it's best to use paper towels if you have that. So separating, we talked about that a little bit, making sure that our raw meat is not used on the same cutting board. We want to, then as we do like our fruits and vegetables, we want to make sure that those are separate. And even just using separate stations is very, very helpful, because if you put the meat on one side and then you have your fresh fruits and veggies on the other, there's not going to be a lot of chance for cross-contamination. With our meat, they're going to be working with some chicken, it sounds like. There's a new guideline with meat. We don't wash our meat anymore. So I know back in the day we were always taught to wash the chicken, pat it dry before we cooked it, but not anymore. They've done tests where they've shown that by washing the chicken or any type of meat, the bacteria can actually be spread throughout the kitchen. So with our chicken, we don't want to wash it. We just want to put it right in the pan and get it cooking. You can put it on the cutting board and cut it up however you want, but you do not want to wash it. Fruits and vegetables, wash. Meat, don't wash. The only fruits and vegetables we don't wash is those that come ready to use. So if they say ready to eat, triple washed, you do not have to wash those again. That's kind of a hard one, because that was something that, it's kind of a habit. You get used to washing them, but they've also shown that it sets them up for cross-contamination also. So don't wash the ones that are ready to eat. So the next one is cooking, and we want to make sure that we cook our foods to a high enough temperature to kill the bacteria, because that's really the only way we can kill the bacteria. I have a chart here. You want to get a chart and make sure that you know exactly how hot to cook your meat. With chicken, it's 165. Just know that. Just treat your chicken as it is contaminated, because most chicken is contaminated to some degree. So we want to make sure we cook that to a high enough temperature. But how do you know? By using a meat thermometer. So a meat thermometer can really change your cooking game. I used to cook the meat till it was like jerky, just to make sure that no one got sick. But once I started using a meat thermometer, I found that if it's at that safe temperature, 165, the chicken is going to be juicy and good, and it's going to be safe to eat. So with our meat thermometer, you want to make sure that you put it in the thickest part of the meat. So if you're cooking a chicken breast, you want to go in the long way. You don't want to come down through that and hit the pan with that. You want to go in to the thickest part of the meat so that you know that that is a safe internal temperature, so that you can serve that chicken. Once our foods are cooked, we want to keep them hot. So hot foods need to be kept at 140 degrees or above for serving. That's going to keep it in the safe zone so that the bacteria doesn't start growing. Once our hot foods get into room temperature, the bacteria can start growing a lot more rapidly. So we want to make sure we keep those hot foods above 140 degrees. So that's really important. Our cold foods, now we need to keep those below 40. So between 40 and 140 degrees is where all that bad stuff happens. I don't know if you see that on the chart. So between 40 and 140, that's where the bacteria grows really rapidly, and it just multiplies. And the more bacteria there is, the more easily people can get sick. So below 40 degrees, so if you have cold foods and it's hot outside, you may want to put some type of an ice bath underneath it, put it on top of ice to keep it cold. For the cold foods, the hot foods, you want to make sure that they're kept above 140. So cooking, keeping it at a high temperature. And then the last suggestion is chilling. So when our food is cooked, we have about 2 hours if we're in a normal room temperature. If you're outside, if you're in Texas and it's 90 degrees, you only have about an hour before that food starts to become unsafe, and you need to get it refrigerated. One tip is to refrigerate in shallow containers so that the product can cool down faster and the cold air can get in there and get it all cooled down. So that's really helpful. But 1 hour, if it's hot outside, is about all you can keep. What's that question? You know, if you're at a contest, I would probably want to make sure that it was safe to eat. So, you know, you want to read the rules for that contest and all, but as far as food safety goes, cold foods need to be kept below 40 degrees. Hot foods need to be kept 140 degrees or above.
Wrong.
Did somebody have a question for Wendy? Maybe not. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, so if you have any questions, you can get a pamphlet from the USDA Food Safety. This is probably available at your extension office or your county health office. That would be good to get this and kind of go through it with the kids. It has, you know, all of the suggestions that I talked about, shows you some different hand washing. There's also some cool videos on foodsafety.gov that you can watch that are really helpful too. So look those up, show those to the kids, and that could really help them understand why it's so important. Nobody wants to get sick. So, and especially in a contest, I would say it'd be really important and something to be proud of, that they were following those food safety steps. So any other questions?
Did we have questions? So there's a couple here. Gretchen, are you still on? Oh, there she is, yeah. So there's a couple things on here that I think maybe they're just a discussion point maybe with Gretchen so that we can leave everybody knowing. So there's just a question in here, Gretchen, about that dishcloths aren't on the approved list of what they could bring, just Clorox wipes. So in that case, maybe what the suggestion is that the kids should do. So Wendy, should they put the Clorox on there, the Clorox wipe, and then maybe take a paper towel and wipe it off? Like, what is your recommendation to deal with that since there's not dishcloths?
Yeah. What do you think, Gretchen?
Well, I can just tell you that I think it's probably better that we do the bleach water. I'm wondering if that's something that we can just do with the state office, Dawn, just so it's consistent. We know what the ratio is.
I think that's a good suggestion. I think this is all a huge learning process for all of us, right? So, and I think it's good that kids learn this. Many people go to the grocery store and buy Clorox wipes. They're great. So hopefully this is why kids are learning and why they're going to sessions to learn this. So I don't know, Gretchen, I think it's a great idea. There's still the kids can use those, but maybe in the pantry, as part of their trip to the pantry, is that there is even a bottles of Clorox water in there. Does that make sense? Or they're at each of the stations and the kids can choose to use them or not. I think that this is a great conversation that we're having because I think even prior to us providing this list, is for this contest in previous years, there wasn't ever a list. So I don't know how many times kids would show up and not ever clean the surface after another kid had just used it. So I think this is a great discussion and a great way that we can do that. So
I would definitely take your own cooking utensils and have the kids used to using them. I've had experiences where I've cooked in other kitchens and, you know, knives, spatulas, all kinds of, you know, cooking utensils that you would wish that you had, you probably go without. And it can really affect the quality of your food. So I would practice with what you're using. Make sure your knives are all sharp and clean. That's really important too. So
yeah, I think that's good. And then the other question on here, just so that we can all have a discussion on it so we're ready, is that there will not be running water. So we know that just the way the contest is. But I would imagine that and Gretchen, this is kind of a question to you, that if the food's going to be in the pantry, we're going to make sure it's clean in the pantry. So if the kids don't have a capability to, I don't know, scrub a potato, we're not going to by all means put that in the pantry and not give an opportunity to clean that. So
Correct.
And then I think that's all the questions connected. There's a couple more on here related not to food safety. Let me just ask. There's a question about the chilling temperature is keeping foods chilled. It's the same way as if there's foods that are going to be in the pantry that need to be chilled. We'll have them in coolers on ice and things like that. The question was about a cooler, Gretchen, to bring their chicken breast. I guess I would like to answer that because it isn't on their list that they can bring a cooler with ice with their chicken breast, but I think that's I think that's just a given that they would do that. So maybe we can adjust the list in the future just to make sure that's put on there. But the question came is, can they bring their chicken breast in a cooler on ice? And I think the answer is
They don't bring the chicken breast.
Oh, they're provided. I forgot that. See,
Yep,
that's good.
they're
So
provided.
I'm sure they take care of all that stuff, and they may have even washed the fruits and vegetables. You never know.
Yep, they will. 100%.
They may have it all ready for them. So
Yep,
something fun to check into. But good luck with everything. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I think those are great things. So I guess that's, I'm glad we had that discussion. So I think that those questions there are great questions, and that's probably what the kids need to know that, I mean, we're going to take care of them on that end. But I think this is super important that when they're practicing at home, that they know what Wendy just shared, right? Like we can't control what they're doing at home and practicing. And so I think that's really important. I think the other part too is that in their presentation, they can talk about these food safety measures. And I think it's really helpful what Wendy shared with us is that when they give their presentation, I think those are things that can get kids added points if they talk about these things that they learned and why they did what they did and things like that. So, Gretchen, do you have anything to add to that part of it?
No, I think it was great. And thanks for sharing, Wendy.
You're welcome. Good to talk with everyone. Thank you.
Wendy, before you leave, will you said there's 4. Could you just say those general 4 again? I think those.
There's clean, separate, cook, and store.
Perfect. I think those are good. I think those are good tips for kids they can use those in a presentation. And I think those are.
And there's a lot of information on foodsafety.gov. So you can actually print off stuff for them. And like I said, the videos are really fun too. So,
Perfect.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Just one more question, Gretchen, for you in terms of food cook-off is that, and I don't know this answer, but we can maybe find out for them, and maybe you know and I don't know. It just says, do we know how large the table is that they're going to get, like how tall, because they have some short little people and.
Standard, I mean, I'm assuming it's the same tables that were used for cake decorating. So it's a standard, is it 8-foot tables, 6-foot tables?
Yeah, like a banquet table. Okay.
Yep.
Definitely for height they would be, right? Are they each going to get their own, 8-foot table? Do you know that plan? Or are
they
going
should each get their own table.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So those are great questions that we'll leave it at that, is that it's going to be a banquet 8-foot table. If that changes, we sure can check with Sarah and double check on that. And if it changes, we'll get that information back out to you.
Good.
If that's good. So other questions about food cook-off before we shift to our next little topic session? Anybody else have questions? Thanks for asking all those questions. I think it's super important and it's a great discussion.
I agree.
Okay. With that, thanks, Gretchen. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks, Dawn.
Okay, so I think our next topic area that we're rolling into is horse hippology. If you're just joining us, there's some people that just got on with us, I think. If you're just joining us, if you could put in the chat box, just to we're trying to keep an attendance thing. So if you can put in the chat box, how many of you are there at your location as far as male, female, and how many people are there, and then what county you're from, that would be helpful just so that we can finish. So with that, we're going to roll into hippology. And kind of the goal that we had with the others is that we're just going to quickly go through the contest. I'm going to explain it a little bit in detail so that kids can come prepared. There is just a couple changes to hippology this year. And then we'll let you guys ask questions or whatever that you have as well. So I'm going to share my screen again. Give me just a minute. I need to get off the food cook-off stuff. So let me give just a minute to get off it. So the hippology contest, one of the changes that is different this year that hopefully is going to be helpful for some individuals that was a request from last year is that the horse hippology does start on Wednesday morning. And in the past, the horse hippology kids had to, they do the classroom component part of it in the morning, and then they had to stay around all day to do the actual horse judging component part of it. That was part of the horse judging contest, and that is the big change for this year, just so you guys know. So there will be, in the horse hippology contest, there is a class that they have to judge. So one component of that is called the, I've got to pull up the evaluation phase, where they are given a class, a halter class that they have to place. And that will be the very first component of the hippology class. And so I think things that are important about this is that we've been super helpful to try to get kids to rotate out of hippology and be able to go do presentations or food cook-off or other things like that, that they were doing at the same time, and then come back and finish, because the judging part of it was until the end. And so hopefully we have got that fixed. So we should be done with the hippology contest, all of it done in the morning. So then if kids are wanting to do multiple events, that they would have the afternoon to schedule like presentations or those other contests that they're trying to get completed. So the evaluation will be a halter class, and it will be ran the very first thing of the contest. So those will be different horses than what will be in the horse judging contest. So one thing about that is we do want to state that maybe those horses are going to be more, I'd say, common horses that come off of ranch type, and maybe not just the show ring halter class. But we're super happy to try to facilitate that and make that easier on kids and that, and coaches and everybody that was shuttling, and that's kind of a big change for this year. From there, the hippology contest is comprised of a station component. I'll get the screen to slide, there it goes. A station component, so if you look right here on the screen, that is that there's an evaluation phase we talked about, a station component, and then a team problem, and then an exam phase for the senior kids only. So the station component, all the stations is the juniors do 7 stations and the intermediate or the seniors do 10 stations. The age category for the contest changed, and I think this is a change from last year, is that junior is now 8 to 13, seniors are 14 and older. And so on the station component, there's 27 optional stations that kids can be presented information that they have to do. And many of those are going to be maybe identification type things, but then also maybe it would be an identification and then they would have to say what it's used for. So for example, if grooming aids was one of those on there, they would be given maybe 5 grooming aids and they'd get 5 points for correctly identifying them. And then they'd also have to say what the grooming aid was used for. So if it was a sweat scraper or if it was a hoof knife or something like that, then they would have to say what it's used for. So really, when on this list here of stations, when it says grooming aids, that could be identification, it could be uses. So the kids need to know that. It could be on horse breeds that they're giving a picture and a description, and they have to identify it, and then they might have to say the origin of that breed, or maybe what that breed is used for, or things like that. So just know that it can be like a little bit more detailed questions from just this list. So basically, 7 of these will be selected for the juniors, 10 will be selected for the seniors. The one challenging thing I think about hippology is that there's not a study guide. So in the livestock skill-a-thon contest I shared earlier, and I don't think anybody's on that was on that, is that we have the CD that the kids can study from. In hippology, it's not that way. So it's a little bit more work on the kids to get some research to try to identify places to study and learn things from. So grooming aids is that they might study out of a Jeffers catalog or that has grooming aids, because the pictures may look a little bit different than it does on Valley Vet or something like that. So just know that. The stations can be comprised of actual items, like the grooming aid example is there might be a hoof knife laying there, like the physical hoof knife. It could be also that it's given a picture. And so just know that it could be either way as far as what they're provided and they need to do. So the same on all of these is like feed samples could be an actual feed sample, but it could also be a picture of a feed sample. So the kids need to know that it's can be either way with that to go. The next part of it is that that it is just for the seniors is the exam phase. And this is actually kind of like a test, if you say. So they do get to do this as a group. So they get to complete it as a group, but they're given questions, and these can be on paper given questions, or it could be projected on a screen type of a thing. And they're going to be given questions that then they have to answer and present. And so that's worth 100 points of the contest for the seniors. And then the final phase for both groups is the team problem. And the team problem is a little bit different than in the livestock skill-a-thon, is that they are given the team problem, but it isn't released until right before the contest. So, and there's not like topic areas per se. There's some examples on here that it could be, but there's not like a study guide is what it would be. So the idea behind the team problem, though, is the same concept as the livestock skill-a-thon team problem, is that they would have 10 minutes to do this. So they just have to know that they would have 10 minutes to present their presentation to the judges, like including everything. If they go over that, they will be penalized. So just know that. They don't have to use the full amount, but they would be penalized if they went off. So kind of the idea behind the team problem is the same concept, is that the kids would come in and they would be prepared to maybe have a discussion, and they're getting scored on is everybody participating in that discussion. So the idea is that they would come in, they'd have the team problem, maybe they'd read it aloud, they would discuss the problem, and then they would present a response to the problem to the judges. And in their response, they should do an explanation of it and give some options. Or and if it's a problem where they can come up to a solution, then they need to do that and give an answer. So an example might be that they are trying to maintain weight on a senior age horse, what should they add to the diet to be able to improve their nutrients intake or something like that. And so there's lots of options to that. And so the idea is that they would come in and present a variety of options, but then they would come up with a solution of what they think the exact answer would be. So I think that's kind of maybe something in the past that the judges maybe didn't get all the time from every group, is that actually what the answer to the question is. They would give some options and then what the answer is. So there is some examples in this that I'm showing on the screen is also on the State 4-H website. So there's other examples on there. Is like there's the one they have under the juniors is that they are given some guidelines and they have to establish what a stable would look like or information about that. They had to, maybe a group of people wanted to go select a breed of horse for their family and which one are they going to purchase or things like that. So those are kind of general topics that they would have to study. And once again, there's probably not a study guide for this, but probably the important part is that the fact that everybody in their group participates. So if they have a team of 4 or 2, or they have a team of 4, that everybody talks at some point during their presentation to their judges. So I think that's an important component part of it. And then the time frame, I was just looking on there and it's not on the State 4-H website as far as the score sheet that's used for hippology, and maybe that's something that we can get added in the next little bit. I didn't realize that wasn't on there, but we'll get the score sheet added on there so that the kids would actually know what the group think process is actually being scored for hippology, so that they would know ahead of time exactly where their points are coming from. So on the group think process though, is that is worth 100 points as well. So when you look at the hippology contest, is that basically the evaluation phase is worth 100, station phase is worth 70 for juniors, 100 for seniors, exam is 100 for seniors, and the team problem is worth 100. On here, as far as teaching resources and things that you can use to prepare your kids, help them with, is that if your extension office has one of those Ohio Learning Lab kits, that is a fabulous resource because there's everything in there from horse parts to breeds to feeds. Like there's a ton of stuff in there that the kids could study and actually see samples and things like that. So that is a great teaching source for them. If your county extension office doesn't have one, that's not the end of the world because not everything, is taken from that. So there's a list on here of other materials or places that they can go study. There's other horse curriculums that were provided to extension offices that can be helpful too. So I guess my suggestion would be to really talk to the extension office and see what resources that they have in there that they could provide that you guys could learn from. So the other thing is that, like, if you're looking at coat colors or things like that, is that many of the breed associations provide those information for free as well, or parts or things like that. So there's definitely resources from there that you guys can use for the kids to study from. So really, I guess that's kind of the point that we wanted to make for this contest, is that there isn't a set study guide. It's kind of it's a knowledge-based contest. The kids have to just sit and study those individual components from, and that hopefully what we wanted from tonight is to make sure that you guys could understand maybe the group think process a little bit better in order to try to give your kids maybe the opportunity to gain a few more points in that part of the contest. And then the other highlight was to make sure that you understood that the judging class will be first and not last. So that's kind of what I had in terms of the horse apology. Brittany Hamilton couldn't join us tonight, and she's the extension person that's over top of the contest. There's a committee. Alex Malcolm's part of that committee, Shaylee's part of the committee, and Jenny, our state horse specialist, is part of the committee. So those people will be around, but during the contest, if your kids need help or have questions, I encourage them, once again, as the same with Gretchen said in the food cook-off, is to ask those questions and so that they get help. So there's people around to help be there to help answer their questions. So does other people have questions that's on in regards to hippology? No? All right. One of the things I think that kids, maybe I just want to comment on that common, not everybody is prepared, is that this is a team-based and we do expect those kids to talk and interact. So know that. Hopefully that they're going to somewhat would be quiet about it, but they would interact with each other. I think it's important that they know that within a room that there will be tables lined up with stations on each of the tables, and that they would go to each particular table to do a session. So the idea would hopefully be that they just be conscientious if there's 4 teams around the station that has a saddle, that maybe they would choose a different station to start on that would help maybe with the number of kids at stations. So I think that that's kind of important for them. Other questions? Anybody else have a question? All right. We're just a little bit early to roll into Dog Skill-a-thon. So Amber's going to join us. She just had tagging tonight, so she's going to be on with us. I think we're just maybe 5 minutes or so ahead. Oh, according to my phone, we're 1 minute. According to the computer, we're 5 minutes. So I don't know what the true time is. But Gretchen is going to join us. So if we can just give her a minute before we roll into Dog Skill-a-thon, we can see if she can get on. And if not, I can do it. But we'll give her just a minute to see if she's going to get on. Okay, guys, I just talked to Amber and she's getting on. So we're just going to give her a minute and she'll get on. She's coming.
Can you hear me, Dawn?
We can. Great.
Okay.
So so we're going to move on. So Amber is the one that is the lead extension person on Dog Skill-a-thon and probably knows more about this contest than anybody. So we're just going to have her maybe just go through kind of what is comprised in Dog Skill-a-thon, share like the study resources that we do have for this, and then maybe answer questions right now. So with that, I will just turn it over to her.
Okay. Can you see me? Sorry, it like went away. Sorry. I'm trying to do this on my phone. Sorry.
Yeah,
I just walked in the door from tagging, so sorry.
No, you're great.
All right. So the Dog Skill-a-thon, I don't know if you guys have all been on. I'm not sure even who's on or what you really have covered yet, but the Dog Skill-a-thon is probably very similar to the Livestock Skill-a-thon. Just an opportunity for youth to interested in dogs to kind of compete using that knowledge that they've gained through the dog program. And so they don't have to be in dog. to participate. It can be, I have kids that do it from our county that are not in dogs. They just want to go to showcase and participate in some things. And so they do it. And so it's, pretty similar to some of the other things, and you can read through that Donna's sharing there, the overview of kind of what the contest looks like, and some objectives and things that we're hoping that they'll learn from the contest. As far as eligibility, it's like I said, you don't have to be in dogs, so it's open to any youth in the 4-H program. Not required. You don't have to show. Don't even have to own a dog. Just have to want to learn about dogs and enjoy or participate in the contest. So this contest can be done as a team or as an individual. So the teams are a minimum of 3 kids and a maximum of 4, similar to other contests that we have in Wyoming. So there's no limit to the teams. You can have as many teams from your county as you would like. Then if they want to, so we split those teams into juniors and senior teams. If they're going to compete as individuals, then we put them into those age groups of juniors as 8 to 10, intermediates as 11 to 13, and seniors as 14 to 18. So they can do either a team, minimum of 3 and a maximum of 4, or they can do that contest as an individual. If you only have 1 or 2 kids that want to come, then they can participate as individuals. Any questions about that before we move on to what we kind of cover in the contest? I can't see, Dawn, if anybody has chats or anything, so if you want to make sure and tell me. Can you still hear me?
Yes, sorry, I was sharing my screen so I had to find my microphone. Yes, you're good.
Okay. So the contest part itself has 4 different components. So the first part, this is a little bit different than it has been in the past if you've participated in the past. So this year it's going to be a quiz bowl. It's going to be very similar to like the Jeopardy that we've done in the past. But it's how we're going to do this. We're going to have 25 questions, and they'll be appropriate to those age categories. So we'll have a junior, an intermediate, and a senior team, or different questions for each of those age groups. And they'll have a 2-point value for seniors and a 1-point value for juniors and intermediates. So how we'll do that is they'll still have the buzzers. We've always had the little buzzer system, so it's like Jeopardy. But instead of us, because we've had some technology issues with it, that's why we're changing to that more like a quiz bowl. So we'll just ask questions, and they'll all be worth 2 points for seniors and 1 point for juniors and intermediates. And they'll just be age appropriate, and we'll just ask questions. The first person to buzz in gets the opportunity. And if they get it wrong, we let the second person buzz in. If they get it wrong, then we move on, and nobody gets any points for that question. We just skip that question and move on. So we will do that. We'll have 3 different times. So we'll start, I think in the past we started with like juniors at 8 o'clock, intermediates at 9, and seniors at 10. And we'll send emails to anybody that's registered before the contest. We'll make sure and send those emails so that you know those exact times. It really will depend on how many kids we have signed up for each category. If we think we can get all the juniors through in an hour, we might, if we have a lot of juniors, we might start intermediates at 9:30. It just kind of depends on how many kids we have. So look for that email before the contest to tell you exactly what time they'll be. But this piece will be open to anybody, parents, other kids, they can all sit in on this. And then after this, we kind of kick everybody out. And then it becomes because we'll have 3 different kind of sets of questions. Dawn, did you put those, I was going to ask you this earlier and I forgot, those questions on yet?
No, but I will. They're not up yet, but they will.
So is that going to be a good study thing for them? Okay. So what we did then is we've taken the last like 10 years ish, maybe we're short a couple years, but ish questions and put them into one document. So that'll be a study guide of where those questions will come from. So those questions for this portion of the contest will come from that, and it'll be posted on this website where Dawn is with all of those questions. So potential questions will come out of that question bank. So that will be a great place to study. That has been a hard thing for counties to be able to study. It's because it's just been random questions from famous dogs to dog breeds to dog show to dog health. I mean, it's just been so random. And so now we've kind of narrowed that down, or put all of those questions into one. So we'll pick from those questions. So be looking there for that bank, that question bank as a study guide. So the second part of the contest is a breed identification. So then we kick everybody out, and then we'll show some pictures. And those participants, they are required to name the breed and the AKC group that that dog belongs to. So they'll receive 1 point for the breed, and 1 point if they guess, or put the correct AKC group. And so they will, juniors and intermediates will identify 25 different breeds, and seniors will identify 50 breeds. And those are on the website, and they are put into kind of like a flashcard. So if you wanted to print them as flashcards, that's what we did for our kids. And then we put them all into those groups, into, sporting group, non-sporting, toy, terrier, all of them. And so then it's a flashcard. So it has the picture of the dog on one side and the name and the group that they belong to on the other side, so they can practice that way if they would like. So that's the second part, and that's all done. We just put it out up on a PowerPoint. We flip through them. They're numbered. We go through, the kids write them down. They turn them in, and we score from there. Spelling is a tiebreaker for us. So we try to spell as best as can. I know some of those dogs have some super weird names, but spell as best as you can. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just a tiebreaker. The third part of the contest is identifying parts. So let's see. Juniors and intermediates will be asked to identify kind of external parts and internal organs of a dog, and seniors are asked to identify parts, internal organs, and skeletal structure. And all of those pictures are on the website, so you have to, that you can look. So 1 point is given for each correct answer on that. And all three of those are on the website to be able to study. And then the fourth part and the final part of the contest is kind of like a skill-a-thon hands-on portion of the contest. So they are asked, we do use the dog kit, and I know some counties have them and some do not. Were you able to get that today, Dawn? No. So there's a kit, and you might ask in your office if your office has one. It has a lot of different things from, has different types of scenarios. They might have some questions on, we've done dog, it has like telling what a dog tail looks like, or their ears to tell their, different things. So it could be anything out of there. But it also could be some things that are down on the bottom of that page where Dawn's at. It has some, a little bit farther down, it talks about the study materials there, so you can help kind of guide from there. But the majority of that stuff will come from that, the dog kit. And it could be things like identifying part or like dog equipment, like what kind of brush is this, or is this a clipper, grooming kind of equipment. Or it could be like one time we did different paws, and so it's been different, just a variety of different things, from bathing, correct scenario, what's kind of the order of how you might bathe them, or lift them, or it could be about parasites, identifying different parasites. It could be conformation or behavioral postures. It could be lots of different things. And it kind of lists, we try to stay within what's ever listed here, and then what's ever listed in those study materials there. And then they get 1 point for every correct answer in that section as well. We score those. We'll have junior awards and senior team awards, plus individual awards on all of that contest. And we don't do like top breed and top top parts. It's overall, it's an all or none type of thing. So we just combined all the points and give awards accordingly in each age division. That kind of wraps up, I think. Did I miss anything, Dawn? It was super fast. Yep, and there is a list of all of those online resources there. So it has all of those different groups. I think our intern a couple years put that little study guide together. It even has a table of contents and a cover page. There's the external, internal, and skeletal parts. And then we'll get those questions up there too, for that question, the quiz bowl part.
Yeah, sorry, I had to find my unmute. I think that's important, that we really wanted you guys to get tonight from tonight's session, is that you knew where the study materials are, and that if the kids study what is online here, is that they should be prepared for the contest. I mean, besides, I mean, it's not an exact concept, but this is a lot that they can study from. So it sure would give them a good base